Yeah, that's like the craziest thing about the NBA, right? Is it's the best league in the world, but some guys kind of forget how to play ball because it's usually one. It's very heliocentric basketball, right? So one guy or like one and a half guys has the ball, like Luka, like he's got the ball. You know, James when I was in Houston had the ball. Like it's a very we go around this guy and we kind of fall into place. So I wasn't getting the ball at the end of the shot clock, expected to make a move. In the summers, I would work with my dad and my boy Gunner, and like I would almost laugh. I'm like, I don't use this stuff though, but like you have to keep like your tools sharp. You never know when you're going to be able to like go out and use it. And going overseas, you are kind of put in a box as well. But I slowly started to like, all right, let me kind of try to unleash this a little bit, here and there. And then it's just about finding an opportunity that you can show it.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Role Player Podcast. After a small hiatus this past couple weeks, still presented to you by the good folks over at Swish Cultures and Eurohoops.net. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Music, or anywhere you get your podcast. Also, be sure to throw us a follow on YouTube at Swish Cultures and on IG at The Role Player Media. That's also on Twitter at The Role Player Media as well. I am Jordan Taylor, 11-year pro, EuroLeague vet, still rolling with the multi-talented Stanford gentleman, retired 11-year pro and Swish Cultures co-founder, the Anthony Goods. Man, it's been a minute since we checked in. Hairline still fresh over there. You've been touching every city in the world. It is what it is right now.
Man. I see you got a little fadeaway going in that left corner. I see the fadeaway in the left corner. You better be careful.
You know what I'm saying? That's my 96 Jordan. I'm getting a little old, but I'm about to. It's graceful though. It's graceful. You know what I'm saying? I'm coming back from practice. I ain't have time to get my brush. You know what I'm saying? So we had to rush it, man. But listen, we got a really good guest, man. A friend of the pod. He's been here before, but he agreed to come back with us one more time with the new and improved format. This man was a first round pick in 2015 to the Houston Rockets. He spent 5 years in the NBA with the Clippers, Cavs, Wizards, and the Rockets, and now has been overseas the past 4 years, 5 years. Has it been 5? 4 years.
3.5.
3.5. Spent time in Lokomotiv Kuban, Başakşehir in Turkey, and now with the London Lions. He's a FIBA Euro Cup champion, two-time All Big Ten selection, Big Ten All-Freshman team, and a first-team parade All-American, and also Wisconsin's Mr. Basketball. Also took Wisconsin to 2 Final Fours back in the day. We got the one and only Sam Dekker. Sam, what's happening, man? Appreciate you joining us.
What's going on? Good to be back. Always fun chatting up hoops and talking about the basketball in a global sense.
Yeah, you might be the first guest. I don't know if you can really partake in the hairline conversation with us. I know you'd like to. Your beard is lined up nice though, so I'm saying you might be. People gonna give us hell because it's February and you might be the first white guest in a while. So it's that's all right, man. We glad to have you here, man. We were just talking about before you got on. What inspired you to grow the beard? Because obviously in college, you was a baby face, and I think your first year in the league or whatever. So what inspired you to grow the beard, man? It was just growing up.
I started growing my beard my 4th year in the league. I'd just gotten traded from Cleveland to D.C., and I didn't have all my stuff. I just, you kind of pack a bag and go. And left behind was, like, stuff I shave with and whatever. And we had, like, a 10-day road trip right away, and it kind of got, like, scruffy. And my wife was like, oh, it looks actually kind of nice. So then I was just like, whatever. Let's just keep it going. And I never went and bought a razor or anything. And I actually got decently long that year. And her and her mom both were like, keep the beard. That's, you're a beard guy for sure. So since then, I've been mostly a beard guy. But it's funny when we look back at pictures and stuff, like the picture over here from our wedding, it's like, I'm like, that's not me. I look like a completely different person. But I feel like if you can pull a beard off, don't get rid of it. So that's kind of where I'm at.
That's good. That's good advice. Mom's coming through on that, man. But like I said, we glad to have you. We're gonna jump right into it, man. Obviously, as we said, you drafted first round pick. You spent the last few years, so that'll take us into our Around the World segment. And you have spent this season in London, leading the London Lions to their first ever playoff berth in Euro Cup by a British basketball team. So congratulations on that. Obviously, as your teammate, I've been happy to play a small part in that.
Congrats to you as well.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. But obviously, you've been there the whole time. So, but man, tell us why you chose London, and kind of for those that don't know, the London Lions are somewhat of a kind of a startup culture in the European basketball scene, looking to get to EuroLeague, looking to make waves, grow the British League in general. So for you, what went into the move to choose London instead of potentially maybe a more lucrative offer in, whether it was Asia or other parts of the world?
It was definitely a leap of faith, right? Getting the calls and stuff this summer, I was getting offers and entertaining stuff, but nothing that really made me like, this is where I need to be, this is where I want to go. And when Brett Berman, our GM, called me and had a conversation with him, also a former Wisconsin grad and guy that's been around the world with NBA, D-League, European, just a guy you could talk to as a GM, and had a vision for what he wanted to build, and almost made it sound like the anti-Europe, right, for an American, just coming in almost a player program, having like a full player development staff, and we're going to go about each day the way that is going to be best for the players. And Sam, we want you to be a leader and a catalyst to grow the game in the UK. And the way they wanted to use me was a way that a team had never approached me on using me. They're like, we want you to be the guy. We want you to be, unlock a lot of stuff that you haven't been able to, that I've had to keep in the garage, and they're just like, we want you to just be able to unleash whatever you have. So, when the London Lions rumors started floating around, everyone's like, that's such a joke. Like, the Lions weren't respected. They've never done anything. And when I signed, people were like, "Oh, like good luck. They're gonna go 0-18 in Euro Cup, and it's gonna be just a money grab." And I think the roster they put together and the way we've constructed it and the way we've kind of gone about it, being the new guy, has been super fun for all of us, as you can attest to. And we play a fun style. We have a schedule that is good for us. Probably one of the best you've been around as a pro in Europe. So everything about it has been A1, and it's a place that I've loved to be, and I would entertain even staying, because it's just a great place to be and a great place to have our family.
Yeah, I think it's like it's definitely one of those rare things when you're able to be on a team, especially overseas, and you trust management, and you trust coaches. And I think that as a player, it makes playing a lot easier, especially because, the season's full of ups and downs. And, definitely when things are not going the greatest, it's good to know that, okay, the communication between, management or the coaches, is what you think it is, as opposed to, in Europe, you lose a couple games, he's on that phone, he's smiling in your face, but, you just, everything's a little uneasy, you know what I'm saying, in most situations across the waters.
It's such a breath of fresh air, like, as Jordan could even, we have a open door policy here. Mm-hmm. We can talk about what we're feeling, what we like, what we dislike, and not feel like the coach or an assistant or someone is going to go behind our back to the GM and be like, this guy sucks, like, let's get rid of him. Like I can air out what I need to air out, and know that we have 15 guys on our team that speak the same language, that can, agree on things and disagree at times and get through it together. And I think that's such a good thing about a culture, that's player driven, with coaching staff that is also cool with us being ourselves, keeping us in check, but letting us be ourselves. I think you get the best out of your players that way, and you can see top to bottom guys that are flourishing because of it. And I think that's a testament to the way our staff has gone about it. And I think some more teams in Europe are going to take that route.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. That's a good kind of segue. It's going to be interesting to see how, and I think Paris basketball has somewhat of a similar approach, right? And they're also doing well in Euro Cup. But it's going to be interesting to see how this has a ripple effect throughout throughout Europe. And if it will stick or not, me personally, I hope it does, because like Sam said, and I think those conversations are going to happen regardless, like, and big shout out to like Ryan Schmidt, our coach, and Brett Berman, the GM. They're doing their job. They're always looking to improve, obviously. But, I think I've never had a GM call my phone and tell me exactly what my role is going to be, like, and just be like, this is what I need you to do, this is what you're going to do from day one, and not deviate from that. And I don't know if you've had that, Goods, in Europe, but I can't recall a situation where it's just that blunt and straight to the point.
Right.
And the only other, as far as living situation that even compares to London, is Israel. So just the culture that they're building, it's, the work gets put in, lose, win, or draw. The work is going to get put in, and you're expected to show up and do your job, and the attitude doesn't really change from the coaching staff. Which is, I don't know how, Sam, you could attest to this, I don't know how Ryan does that, like, because even as players, like, we lose a game and, we're frustrated, he's back in the gym, same energy, like, positive, trying to get critiquing, but also trying to get the best out of all of us. So, yeah, for me, especially at 33, it's a breath of fresh air. So
For sure. And yeah, it's like, how do you go in Europe with wins and losses? Like, you can really lose a locker room early when you lose games, and I'll be back in the morning, you're going to run, da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And then it just turns into grumbling. And that's the thing here. We've lost games that we shouldn't lose at times, especially in Euro Cup. And, yeah, coach gets pissed. Well, coach doesn't get pissed. But the next day he's, greeting you at practice, and we're back to our stuff. We don't, I don't go into practice thinking, yeah, it might be a hard film session. We might hear things we don't want to hear, but then he doesn't overdo it. And then that's the biggest thing for me here is, like, I'm not going to work stressed and coming home stressed. Like, I'm able to go to work and know this is what we're going to do. This is my role. This is my job. And I'm going to be able to be me. And having that in an overseas situation has been a breath of fresh air.
Yep, and they encourage things like this. Obviously, my podcast or at other places, I know they kind of frown on things like this from players. So it's again, that's just things that are positive. But for you, as someone who's kind of the face of the London Lions right now, especially on the American side, what does it mean to be building a basketball culture in London, a place that is known for football or soccer and rugby?
It's cool. It's something I didn't really grasp at first because I didn't spend much time in the UK in my life. And when I got here, I realized how little basketball culture there was.
Yeah.
Like, finding a court for practice in August was, like, difficult. And just the infrastructure's not there. The government spending on sports like soccer and rugby exceed basketball by, like, something like 85%. Like, there's just no way to build up the sport. So to be kind of tasked with helping youth basketball grow here has been cool. I think our marketing team has been amazing in getting out in the communities, and they've gone to different areas and making London Lions court, outdoor basketball courts, pavement with good hoops, and supplying different youth programs, tickets to games and jerseys and basketballs, and, like, little things like that. Early in the year, we were having maybe 1,000 people at games, and now we're selling out regular season Thursday night games against bottom tier BBL team. And now, like, to see that, and it's like kids returning with their families, and I have people, coming to games and saying, like, we can't get enough. My son can't get enough. He just wants to play basketball. Do you have any idea on a basketball academy for my son? Like, hearing that is cool. So seeing that there's now a thirst or a hunger for the sport has been awesome. And to think, Tyler Ennis, who's in Turkey, told me the other day, he's like, it's got to be kind of a cool thing. And you got to think about, like, at some point these kids are going to grow up and play ball somewhere, and they're going to be like, someone's going to ask them how they got into basketball. And they're going to say, yeah, when I was 8, I went to a London Lions game. And this guy, Sam Dekker, was out there, and he said hi to me. And, like, to be a guy like that, it feels cool. And if I could be a memory or a reason that basketball gets bigger in someone's household, that's half the battle right there.
Will you or will you not be insulted when someone calls you John Havlicek of the British Basketball League?
I mean, John Havlicek's a pretty.
You know what I'm
Pretty
saying?
good
But
name,
you know,
right?
by 30 years from now, people are gonna be dunking with their left. You know what I'm saying? Gonna be dunking all crazy. They're gonna make us look super unathletic. And John Havlicek gonna be like, it might. You know what I'm saying? It might be so. You know how people talk? They talk about John Havlicek like he couldn't hoop. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Could I not hoop?
All right, here you go. See, you don't want to just answer the damn question. You know, let's move
No,
on.
I would love. I would love to be. No, I would love to have. You know, if there's a point where there are teams or the BBL itself is a league that Americans and other great pros across the globe want to come and play, and if it gets to the point where they, you know, we know the vision they have, but if it gets to that point where we have EuroLeague teams or the BBL itself is the standalone league, I think, yeah, I would be proud of if they were like, yeah, Sam Dekker helped, or that Lions team in 2023 like really was like the start of this. If like we're mentioned for that and are a part of UK history for a sport that's growing here, yeah, that'd be sick. That'd be awesome. And I think I take that pretty personally as well. And I take it as a task to be a good representative of that.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that the London Lions are in this growth stage and they don't have like the public pressure that a lot of like European teams typically have, like a Pana or Olympiacos, because now you do have the freedom to, you know, be more or cater more to the players. And you don't have to, you know how teams just do things just because of public perception or the sponsors or whoever else has too much pull in the community is kind of trying to, you know, dictate things one way or the other. So I think it's good for the players and the coaches. You know what I'm saying? Because you can kind of just be who you want to be and then, you know, relax, and hopefully it works out from there.
And I think the business model, it seems like moving forward, I don't know if the London Lions will really ever have the same pressure that a Pana, even if they're at the top of the EuroLeague. I think the way that things are just being set up here, I don't think it'll ever get to that.
Okay, so you
from
think
a pressure standpoint, which I think is good.
All right, so you think, like, let's say London Lions blow up, EuroLeague team, all that, fan base grows. You think that fan base is going to be more like an NBA fan base, or will it ever get to like a Greek, you know, Greek Serbia, Turkish fan base?
I'll let Sam in, but for me, I think UK is U.S. culture. It's very close to U.S. culture, and I think that it'll be an NBA fan base. Long story.
But
short.
I mean, look at the football fan base though. The UK football fan base is crazy.
I think it's different because like Manchester United has been around for what 200 years.
Mm-hmm.
Chelsea has been. They're literally like their roots are just embedded in British culture, and you know these people's great grandfathers were diehard Liverpool fans. Like we're like a new wave, so I feel like even 20 years from now it'll be like. Basketball will still be relatively new compared to, so I could see it almost being like, I don't know. This is gonna sound weird because they don't have like a rabid fan base, but they do get fans at games like Brooklyn, like where it's like a fun experience to go to. It's almost a show, but with a good product that the front office and the locker room cares deeply about winning, but it'll never be like this fan base that is. In the stands, like literally punching a fan from, the Cheshire Phoenix fan. I don't know.
But I think that's 98% of sports teams. Our fans are like that. Like if you look around the EuroLeague, FS fans aren't really like that. Like FS. Okay, now they're good, so I guess they're louder. But FS fans, Monaco, Asvel, Alba Berlin, like those fans aren't like that. Like they're not like Pana and they're not like Olympiacos fans and Partizan.
But I feel like every country got one team that has those fans. You know what I mean?
Who's that team in Germany?
Munich?
No.
For football, at least.
For basketball. Football, like you said, football is different.
I mean, I felt like Wurzburg had a great environment. I don't think that it wasn't like hectic to the point where you was just like scared, like not scared, but just looking over your shoulder like at a Partizan game. But I'm saying like they were active. They were active. They had energy. Like you came in there, it looked like a tough place to.
And two, I think the BBL has that. I think Leicester is kind of Leicester. If you had to pick a team right now, and I think that will only grow. But I think Leicester is that for the time being. I don't know if Sam would agree with that, but
yeah, they have the history.
Yeah.
They're the team that's won it every year, and they traveled well to the BBL Cup that we just had, and but I think in terms of excitement and new crowd and energy, I think the Lions are going to be like that loud team with, I think a young fan base that's like really ready to, show their voice.
All you need to do is get a team with a tequila sponsor, start handing out free shots at halftime. It's going to turn up that season. And then they got to keep it up.
That's why I said we need like a halftime VIP lounge, like presented by some like gin company, some London gin company, and handing out cocktails at halftime.
Our Paris game goods was like the closest thing to like a staple. Obviously, it's not the Staples Center. It's not as many people, but like the production, there was people. There was people like Maya Jama in the crowd, like K-Trap came to perform. It's the closest thing to that type of production at a basketball game that I've seen in my time overseas, and it wasn't like not even close.
It was impressive.
It was impressive, especially to pull together in the first season. So I think that will only grow, man. But let's talk a little bit about your game overseas, man. Like I think for those that don't know, you spent time with James Harden in Houston, Dwight Howard in Houston. You've played with some big names, man. Spent some time in L.A. Everybody does know that playing with guys like that, you don't really get to go in your full bag. You don't get to show what you can do necessarily. You're kind of a get to the corner, play defense type of guy. So how has your game grown since being overseas, especially in this London Lions situation? As you mentioned, Coach Ryan Schmidt and Brett Berman wanted you to get more in your bag here.
Yeah, that's like the craziest thing about the NBA, right? Is it's the best league in the world, but some guys kind of forget how to play ball because it's usually it's very heliocentric basketball, right? So one guy or like 1.5 guys has the ball
Schoolwork
a lot of the time.
Okay.
I mean, think of like it's like the class, like like Luka, like he's got the ball. James when I was in Houston had the ball. Like it's we go around this guy and we kind of fall into place. So I wasn't getting the ball at the end of the shot clock, expected to make a move. In the summers, I would work with my dad and my boy Gunner, and like I would almost laugh. I'm like, I don't use this stuff though, but like you have to keep like your tools sharp. You never know when you're going to be able to like go out and use it. And going overseas, you are kind of put in a box as well. But I, slowly started to like, all right, let me kind of try to unleash this a little bit, here and there. And then it's just about finding an opportunity that you can show it. 2 years ago in Turk Telecom, we had a very kind of like players first, kind of mentality, and was finally at the 3. Teams overseas are playing me like 4 and 5, and it's like, because I'm tall. That's what it is. Oh, you're 6'9", like you're just gonna be the 4 and screen and roll and shoot corner 3. Sometimes if we went small, I was boxing out the 5s and rolling and stuff, and like that's just not who I am. And finally, I found a coach in Turkey that was like, you can play the 3, bring the ball up, whatever, and that just like untapped so much for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm back into this world in space. Getting switches and just like going to work, and that's what got me back, getting signed to Toronto. Just being able to show more of my game, and then even though I got cut, halfway or 15 games into last season by the Raptors, I'm still with that team from July till November, and just being in that circle and like back in the player development and using my game and being a guard again. Like, you get so much better just playing ones against other good pros and 2-on-2, and just, like, knowing you still have that. It's like, oh, my gosh, I'm just adding every day. And now in this role where I'm bringing the ball up again, and now I'm back to just, like, now I'm mindless. Now it's like, this is who I am. I'm getting 2 feet in the paint. I don't care what you throw at me. My confidence is so high right now, and I'm just not thinking about a damn thing. To the point, like, my dad called me the other day, and he was like, finally, the stuff we always joked about in the summers, like, you're doing it. And you're back to, like, looking like the Sam that he knows. And he's like, it's just a joy to watch. Like, that's all he said. That's all he had to say. And it's true. It's a joy to play, just to feel like I can just go and just, show my whole bag. I don't mean to be long-winded here, but that's just it's a joy, and it's really fun to just be able to be yourself. And when you're in a position like that in basketball, it's so freeing.
I mean, you the guest, so you can be as long-winded as you want, man. That's why you're here. But yeah, I can imagine it's been fun to watch, as your teammate too, and obviously from afar, at the beginning of this season. So, do you think that playing the 4-5 and doing those things, do you think that helped you in any type of way? Do you think that helped your game in any way?
A little bit. I mean, just I kind of played the 4 in Houston, but that was like we were playing positionless run and gun. I was still shooting threes, sprinting up the floor. In LA, I was a little more traditional 4. Yeah, I mean, it helped in ways. I could get more switches. I was getting, more 1-4 switches getting in the post, so I was able to add that kind of post presence back into my game that I kind of got away from in the league because you're not really posting as a wing. So I think I definitely got more comfortable being, in the post and, being in traffic in the lane, but still just my game opens up so much more when I can use my length and my size and my ball handling ability. I think I'm half the player I am when I'm just playing off ball and setting screens and picking pops. Like, that's just I just think that's just putting a handicap on me. So I think learning those positions at the 4 helps me now as a guard. If we have, Tomislav Zubcic, like an elite pick and pop 4 now, like I can get into his brain being like, okay, where does he want it? Where does he, where is he going to thrive? How can we get this switch for him? So learning multiple positions helps you from a facilitatory aspect, and that's helped my game a little bit.
All right, so now you're on the second half of your career. If you had to play the second half of your career, with this confidence, being able to bring the ball up the court, et cetera, or being in the league, reserve minutes, but getting paid double, what are you choosing?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think that's something we always wrestle with in our minds, right? Getting paid double is nice, but it also at the same time, it's like, are you getting out the fulfillment from your job and from the sport that you love? We still get paid well over here, so I'm not complaining at all about that. And I think this year has really reinforced like my joy in hoop. Not to say I wasn't enjoying it last year. I had a great time. Like I've always loved the game. But here in this situation particularly, I'm excited to go to practice, which is weird. I'm excited I don't get anxious for stuff. I just know that I've put in so much work, now I can just do it. So I think there's something to that about being, loving what you do where you are. And I think being able to show and compete now in the second half of my career, like you said, I have a long ways to go, but as long as you can keep playing at a high level like that, you love chasing that feeling. So I think to answer your question, I would, if I can continue to find that feeling, I would be fine being over here.
Right. Because I think, looking back on a basketball career, especially more so in the second half, I think it's much more valuable enjoying what you're doing. After your career, you're going to find ways to make money. You know what I mean? Money is obviously dope, but at this point, everybody's getting paid, well, and, you're able to live and all that other stuff. But I think that looking back on that basketball career, because it is going to expire, you want to look back and, feel like, okay, I did something. I had a 40-point game, at 35. I did this. These things are the things you're going to think about because, you're going to have another job that's going to bring you money. You're not going to have another job that's going to bring you 40-point games and 30-point games at this type of level.
I think that type of stuff bleeds into your life after basketball too. I think that gives you kind of while you're doing it, but then after it's kind of you kind of have just this vibe, this bounce about you when you can do those things all the way and enjoy basketball rather than just sitting on the bench and kind of leaving with the sour feeling.
That's a great point too. Like we do off the court stuff. I host a podcast. Obviously, I'm on a lot of other people's podcasts, or if I go to a dinner with some group of people in a position of power, like the confidence I have and like almost the swag about it's easier to talk hoops when you feel like you're good at hoops. Yeah. When you feel like yeah, I've been doing my thing, then you go on a show and it's like, yeah, you have no problem like talking about it and being excited about it. When I'm sitting on the bench in Toronto, like getting DNP after DNP after DNP, it's like, do I want to tweet this? I mean, like, people are going to be like, get in the gym, bum. You know what I mean? So it's like, it all bleeds into your life. So it's a good point, Jordan.
Yeah, it's all good stuff, man. But let's jump inside the L, man, real quick. Trade deadline just hit. Obviously, it's big news. Everybody watched it. I think the NBA has the best trade deadline in the world. I don't know how many trade deadlines there are, but for sure the NBA has the best, man. So both of y'all, just weigh in real quick. Who's your biggest winners? Which team got the most return? And what was your favorite trade? Who's going to be the most fun to watch?
What team got the biggest return? I mean, I think that's very obvious is Phoenix Suns. These trades don't happen. You don't.
Is that obvious?
Top 15 players of all time, you remember those trades when guys like that get moved. So it's groundbreaking when you can acquire a guy like that. I don't care who you gave up. Guys like that don't get traded, like mid-season at the deadline. So I think that's like he's easy money, man. Like there's no one like him, and he's also a guy that is okay with playing with other people. You saw him do it in Golden State. You saw him do it in Brooklyn. He wanted to make it work with Beard. He wanted to make it work with Kyrie. It didn't. But we've seen him make it work. He loves to hoop. Now he's with CP. Now he's with Book. He can catch his breath at times and then still go his 12 or 15 or whatever he does every night. I mean, it almost doesn't matter who you have around them.
So that's your favorite? That's your championship favorite now? No, you said the Bucks.
My championship favorite, no, but that's my favorite in terms of what you can get at the deadline.
Okay.
I think the two matchups I see happening, I think it's Phoenix-Milwaukee, which would be a great rematch, over Phoenix-Boston.
Okay. Goods, who you like, man? Biggest winners, favorite trade?
Yeah, I think it's Phoenix. I think, getting KD, and kind of like Sam said, KD's kind of been in this situation playing alongside other stars, having to fit inside of a system that was already there. But I'm interested to see how the Luka Kyrie situation works out over there. I think that one might take a little more time, you know what I mean? And I just don't think that they're as complete of a team, you know what I mean? But I'm interested to see how both of those situations work out, because I see like the Luka Kyrie dynamic, kind of like when CP came to James Harden and the Rockets. You know what I'm saying? You got two guys that obviously are used to having the ball in their hands, and everybody's wondering how they're going to share it. And I felt like James and them started to figure it out. But I'm really interested to see how the West is going to shake out now, man. And I think it's super dope that we got some really, really good teams in the East and some really, really good teams in the West, because as y'all remember, there was a while where it was almost like, the East just had like one or two, and then the West was just stacked. You know what I mean? So yeah, this is gonna be exciting.
Yeah, I hear y'all. I think that the Suns are gonna be fun to track. I do think that the Lakers were the biggest winners in terms of trade value. I think you get a guy in D'Angelo Russell who's a perfect fit with LeBron. That's the type of guard. Obviously LeBron.
How is he a perfect fit
today? Because that's the type of guard that LeBron has been successful with throughout his career. A scoring guard, off-ball guard, Mo Williams, Kyrie Irving type of guard. I'm not saying he's Kyrie Irving, but that's the type of guard that LeBron has thrived with in his career. That's just it is what it is. And you add Anthony Davis, and you add a shooter in Malik Beasley, and you add just a guy who's going to go get it in Jared Vanderbilt, and then a big who can knock down shots, protect the rim, in Mo Bamba. And on top of that, you still have the chance to go retool in the offseason. as far as like the near term, yeah, okay, Kevin Durant going to the Phoenix Suns, they're instant title contenders, but Kevin Durant is still 34 years old, coming off an Achilles. So the Phoenix Suns, again, their championship window is now 2 years. So if they don't win, and their depth is not great, they gave up a lot of depth, they gave up a lot of first round picks. So if they don't win in the next 2 years, which I'm not so sold, and I don't think you guys are either, that they win this year, where does that leave the Suns with the 38-year-old Chris Paul or 40-year-old Chris Paul and a 36-year-old Kevin Durant? You got cap space. Phoenix isn't a place that, I mean, guys typically go in free agency. Obviously, that could change with Book there. But where do you go after that?
Yeah. Well, it's called new owner syndrome. I think his name's Matt Ishbia. He just took over last week. You have to make a splash early. You have to make a splash. You can't just say, "Oh, we went out and we made it work with Jay Crowder. Come on back, Jay." Like, you have to make your mark as a new owner. Hey, I'm all in.
Yeah.
You're making Phoenix be like, this guy's for us. Holy, we got Kevin Durant coming. But like, you have to do that if you are in that position as a new owner. You have to make a move early like that. So I think that's where that move came into play. And then, like, in the flip side of that trade with Brooklyn, I just think they just needed a complete culture reset. I don't think this was about KD. I think this was, the Kyrie stuff and KD last summer and then James Harden. Like, all the promises that didn't go through, I just think they had such a good culture with that team with D'Lo and Theo Pinson. Like, that was a fun team they had with Dinwiddie a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. They brought these guys in, culture changed, and I think they're now like, let's try to recoup that chemistry we had and that old culture. So I think then getting guys in that Phoenix deal, like legit pieces, I think overall this will be, I think, good for both sides. And I think maybe more for Brooklyn in the long run, but if you can win a title and make your title window, even if it's just a year and a half of like, hey, we have a shot here, I think you got to do it as a new owner.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with the owner sentiment, but I don't think that necessarily makes you the biggest winner of the trade deadline. But I do agree. I do agree with
Fair.
that point. But Goods mentioned the CP trade to Houston. For those that don't know, you were a part of that trade. Went to Los Angeles. So I guess just touch on, man, what was the feeling like going from Houston, who had been a title contender? You got to play. You got as a young player, got to go deep playoff runs. You're playing with James Harden. To LA, who at the time was kind of, I'd say maybe similar to like that Brooklyn with D'Angelo Russell type situation. They were retooling, but you guys had some pieces. I think Tobias was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
we still had Blake. We had DeAndre.
Still had Blake, DeAndre. So you still had a good team, but what did it? Was there excitement going to LA? Did the sales kind of come out leaving the Houston situation, or what was that like being a part of that trade?
It was tough. It was hard. The first time getting traded is always the weirdest. I was at the facility mid-lift, and my phone started blowing up, and went on Twitter, saw that I had been traded for Chris Paul with Lou and Montrez and man, it was five of us going. Pat, yeah. So it was like our whole second unit getting traded to LA for Chris, and so I go up and talk to our GM, and I just didn't know what. I'm like, what's next? They're like, just go home. You're gonna get a call from LA, and piece by piece, they're gonna figure it out. So you fly out there, and that's the thing about trades. Like, trade deadline moves is crazy, right? Because like, these guys have more than just basketball. They have families and kids and dogs and houses and cars. It's like there's so much that could be a whole other podcast that goes into a trade. But being part of that first trade, especially for a guy like Chris Paul, like, I get it from the business aspect. In terms of my career, it just kind of started a domino of like one trade after another, that kind of stunted my future in the NBA. But I think the way I handled it was as good as I could. Still found ways to be in rotations and get on the court. It's just I got labeled as a guy like, why didn't he not stick with one team? Being part of that first trade, it's anxious moments. You want to prove yourself like right away, but it's just like if it's not in the plans, it's not in the plans. But that trade deadline anxiety is something I do not miss, because that is a dog of a day.
Yeah, what's it like restarting? Once you get to a new team, what are the difficulties with that?
I think it's funny because you go from, when I was in Houston, we had D'Antoni, we had this run and gun system. I knew my role in the second unit. I could walk up from the bench. I could see, I know what time coach is going to turn around and point at me to go in. Like, he didn't even have to tell me. I knew at 4 minutes left in the first quarter, I get up, I take my warm up off, I walk to the scorer's table. 6 minutes left in the second quarter, I'm coming to the bench. Like, I knew exactly every game what I was going to do. And now it's like, okay, new routine, new staff, trying to prove yourself to a new head coach, a new assistant staff. You get in there for your workouts and you're like, okay, who's my guy here? What's your name? Like just learning these little things that, make the game a little harder, because you're like, I just want to prove, I want to show, I want to have a really good workout today so he can go to Doc Rivers and be like, Sam's like, he could really help us, So that restart every year was really tough for me. I'm in year 8 and I've had 11 head coaches. It's like I always have felt like I'm trying to prove myself to a new staff. And I think that's what makes me a little, as Jordan knows, like I'm very, when it comes to basketball, I'm very particular about certain things, because I want to prove. I don't want to waste time. I want to be able to show who I am. And I think that comes from kind of being anxious from getting traded a lot and switching staffs and learning new things. So that restart's hard, especially for a young player, and it helped going to LA with like a guy like Pat Beverly and Lou Williams and some vets that I've been through it before, and those guys were really my crutch for that year.
Is there a difference in in psychology from the organization? Because obviously in Houston you're their first round pick, so they're invested in you, right? When you go to LA, you're part of a trade, and is there a difference in the way they look at you? Because, like I said, you're not their first round pick, and what is that difference if so?
Yeah, it's so different because I didn't have, you don't grow that bond, that mesh. You don't have, Lawrence Frank didn't draft me, Doc Rivers didn't draft me, so they don't have that I want to be right about him mentality. Daryl Morey wanted to be right about me in Houston, so let's keep seeing how Sam's doing, or let me keep checking in on Sam and see is he healthy, whatever. So that is a little different. Doc isn't one to really play favorites. I think he's pretty good about he knows what's going to help his teams win and lose. He's very cut and dry about things, which was hard at times, but I think definitely, not being there from day one, coming in, but still coming in as a young guy, kind of puts you behind the 8 ball a little bit, and again, hits back on you have to do anything in your power to try to prove it day in and day out. And luckily we had a weird year that year that almost forced me to play, because there was times I knew Doc didn't want to play me because I wasn't playing that well. And thankfully there was a bunch of stuff that was happening that year that got me on the court and got me back comfortable in his system. But my head was swimming a lot that year, and I wish I could go back and almost redo it, because there's a lot of things that I didn't think I handled properly, and that now as a more seasoned pro, I think I could do way better.
If you could hop in the DeLorean right now and go back to that trade, being on kind of obviously Chris Paul's the headline in that trade, what advice would you give to yourself on how you said you handled it as good as you could have, but what would you do differently? What would you tell, say, a Cam Johnson right now who's on the other side of the Kevin Durant trade and going to a place where his names might not be mentioned as much for the next couple of years?
Stand out, don't fit in. I was worried about, how I am. I wanted to not step on anyone's toes, and I wanted to be liked. It didn't mean that I didn't want to be on the court and show who I am. It was just go be assertive, go piss some people off, especially early when you get there. Make them feel you, make them know that you're in the gym. And I think that was something that I think I was so shell shocked about the trade and not hadn't been through that before, that I was kind of like second guessing, just like, okay, how do I go about this, or how do I make them like me, or how do I make them understand that I'm doing my best, instead of just like going out there and being an MFer and like just like, I'm not here to make friends. And the way you make friends is earning respect on the court and going out there and not being afraid of conflict, not being afraid of doing the dirty things, the little things. And that's one thing I would definitely say, is just like, don't fit in and don't be afraid to stand out in whatever way you can.
Before we move on real quick, this is a random question, but since you did play with James Harden, what similarities do you see between James Harden and Luka, if any?
Well, that word that you loved, the heliocentric offense.
Listen,
I think he plays.
Let me stop you right there. Let me stop. In honor of Black History Month, no, actually, that ain't got nothing to do with it. I just wanted to make, but no, heliocentric does not belong in basketball conversation.
Well, that's like the biggest.
It comes with the Badger Bachelor degree. You know what I mean? You get like 5 big words you can take with you to like any country. You know what I'm saying? You can use it in any setting.
Boy, like, you went to Stanford. You went to Stanford.
You never hear that. You never hear that in basketball terms. Like where I think Luka's usage rate is like 39.
Yeah, I've heard it.
I think James is when my second year was his, like, I think his best year. He was at like 37% or something. Like,
yeah, I've heard it.
So I see the similarities is I see them as guys that are able to literally create an offense and an efficient offense with sometimes just the ball in their hands. And that's, people complain about it, but also people don't realize how hard that is.
Facts.
Like, you have a whole team loaded up against you, and you're still making it work. And when James was out of games, sometimes we could not score the ball. There was times. And then he comes back in, and everything's working again. So that's similarities I see.
Not only to put up numbers, but to win doing that is extremely difficult. I think there's guys
Luka last year got to the Western Conference Finals last year. James went to back-to-back Western Conference Finals. We won 59 games my second year. Like, James was leading us to wins. And I also think they're both really, really, really good passers and willing passers. They get a lot of field goal attempts up, but they have the ball so much. I think it slips through the cracks how good of passers they are. I think less this year as James is leading the league, but the passing that they can make and get guys in position to score and score easy baskets is a rare quality that those two do at an exceptionally high level.
All right. We'll leave it at that. Let's jump into basketball culture, man, real quick. Quick question for both of y'all. Obviously discussing trade deadline today. Should the EuroLeague or the Euro Cup or any domestic leagues institute a trade deadline? Or, I mean, some have all-star games. EuroLeague needs an all-star game. So we'll just leave it at that. Should any domestic leagues, Euro Cup or EuroLeague, institute a trade deadline?
I mean, they have like a trade transfer deadline where you can. I don't think you're allowed to like sign any players, but I think it's late though. It's like in May or early first week of May or something like that. But I don't know. It's tough. Like, Europe's just a different beast, man. You know what I mean? There's not really trades happening in Europe. You know, it's more so guys getting cut or leaving and, you know, moving to another team. Other leagues finish before others. I think you kind of have to have it open, you know, in regards to the deadline.
I don't think you could have a trade deadline in European basketball just as a whole. You could have a trade deadline or like transaction pool in EuroLeague, because EuroLeague, it's bigger cities with better infrastructure, better organizations with more money that can facilitate a Kevin Pangos, I don't know, and his wife and kids. Like, okay, they can help get them all from Milan to, I don't know, Madrid for whatever play. And I think doing that if you just open it up to all Europe, there's guys in Saratov, Russia, that couldn't happen. Like, it's harder to make things work with these smaller cities, these smaller organizations. But I think if you open it up to EuroLeague and it was able to have like a really detailed approach to it, I think trades could become a thing, and I think it would actually be kind of fun because there's guys that there's coaches and GMs that want to get off guys. That's everywhere. So I think it'd be kind of interesting to see because some crazy team with some GM or owner would like trade their star player just randomly, and then it would happen, and it'd be like, oh, he was a bad teammate, and then Twitter would blow up. So I think that'd be hilarious.
Think about like as we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, just think about the public pressure like with each trade. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that would be nuts.
It'd be so funny.
Oh yeah, it would be funny. It'd definitely be more entertaining. But I think it would get kind of crazy, especially because the budgets aren't really regulated like that. You know what I mean? And you got the
and I think that'd be hard. You couldn't trade like a guy making whatever 7 figures at Pana and sending him to Zagreus, who couldn't afford that.
Right.
It just I guess it's like that in some other sports in the States. So it would be hard. I know buyouts are a thing, but I think that'd be chaos, Jordan. I really think that'd be chaos.
I think you could do it in the BBL. Maybe not right now today, but I think you could do it in the closed league, like domestically, like in the BBL. I think
Australia could do it for sure.
Australia for sure could do it. I think where the BBL is going, British Basketball League, I think you could do it. You think so? No?
Yeah, they could. I just think now it's a little uneven with budgets from across the league, but I think to where they're going, yes. Maybe interdomestically you could do it with. Maybe ACB could do it, maybe Turkey, but I don't know if you could do it across. That's what it should be. Interdomestically, you can do trades. That would be fire.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Like ACB can trade guys within ACB or EuroLeague within EuroLeague, but not. Yeah, it would be difficult to trade a guy from Tenerife or whatever, Gran Canaria to, like you said, Saratov. Like, okay, yeah, that's OD.
But it would make sense if you did like a Trento to Brindisi.
Right.
That'd be cool. I'm for it. Let's do it. Ant, get on that.
Nah, it would be dope, man. It'll be interesting to see how it would change the game. But to wrap up, we got a paycheck, rain check. Somebody's paycheck is taking a rain check, and this week's episode, I'm gonna highlight James Jones, man, for landing that big trade that we spoke about earlier with Phoenix, forming that super team down in Phoenix, and 2020-2021 season. He was the executive of the year in the NBA. And, the question from this is his success paving the way for former pros in the front office? He's only 42 years old.
Yeah, I love seeing a young former player being able to make big moves and not being afraid to make big moves. I think you've seen great examples. Say what you want about guys as people, but Danny Ainge got in the game at a young age. I think he's one of the most active guys, former players, in making trades and making moves. And I think you see. I think role players make really good coaches and executives. I think where Michael Jordan struggles is the game was so easy for him, and I think he expects, why can't he do that? It's because he's not you. And I think when you have on the coaching side, a guy like Ty Lue, he was a 9th guy on the bench, 8th guy on the bench. He can talk to his bench and he can talk to his stars the same way. So I think to your point, I think this paves the way for, more young players and retiring players that want to get in the front office. I wouldn't be surprised if Udonis Haslem goes down a route like this. guys that just they know the ins and outs of an organization and how it works. UD might be doing it now.
I was about to say,
but
we know,
yeah, but player GM. But I think you have a good point there, and I think he's done a great job. And he's close with Chris Paul. He's got that. He's young enough to be able to have relationships with the players, but also old enough to have been through a lot in the basketball world. So can make good moves like this, and I think this is a splash for him.
Yeah, and then you look at him, and then Landry being over and Landry Fields getting a job over at the Hawks. You know, I mean, it's I think that this could be a new trend, especially if they start having success and being able to keep superstars happy, and in the organization.
If it's a big if.
Big if.
Yeah. I think you made a valid point on role players being better. I think we've talked about that before. Better coaches, GMs, whatever. However, do you think that it's easier for a superstar like a Jason Kidd? Because Jason Kidd now is, I mean, if we're being for real, I'm not going to say he developed Luka, but he did put together the model in Milwaukee for Giannis. And now he's obviously coaching Luka and has the Mavs thriving. Do you think it's easier for a superstar to kind of get that greatness out of people and take it to from individuals? Because I do think if you pair like a Michael Jordan with a Luka, or Jason Kidd with the Luka, Giannis, whatever, then I think both sides thrive. But do you think it's more about them bringing that greatness out, or are those guys just great and they're fortunate to have them?
I think it's about. Like I know from people I know, like Jason Kidd early on as a head coach, I heard it wasn't fun. It wasn't good because Jason in his head was still the star player. He's a Hall of Fame point guard. Everybody knows that, but sometimes you have to put your pride to the side and realize you're not playing anymore. And I think towards his end of his regime in Milwaukee, I think he kind of turned that corner to where he's like, I am a coach and I am just a coach. And now you see that in Dallas after he got, he's in LA doing the assistant thing. And I think that was good for him as a coach, is to now where he's in Dallas and he can impart the wisdom as a Hall of Fame point guard to a guy like Luka and now Kyrie, but also be like, hey, I have to step back and disconnect myself a little bit from the guys and realize I'm a coach and I still have to coach X's and O's and coach my bench, coach 1 through 15. I think if you have a really good balance, I think then those star guys are just as unique as it is as a coach. But in response to your question, I have a question. So how does it differ from Jay Kidd to Steve Nash? Both completely different leadership styles. Where did it go wrong for each have had really highs as coach and really, really low lows as coach. So
I think just what you said. I think if Steve Nash just came from, not straight from playing, but essentially from playing from the streets to coach. Whereas I think he needs, everybody needs reps, man. Like, you be a great player, you need reps as a coach. You need experience and all that. So like you said, Jason Kidd wasn't great right away. And I think he's much better now. And I think, I think you kind of even heard the rumblings when he got the Dallas job. It was like, oh, Jay Kidd's, this, that. And now it's like, look at the job he's doing with that group. I mean, obviously they're not amazing, but I think he's doing a great job coaching. So I think it's just reps. I think if Steve Nash, gets on a bench somewhere. Where is he at right now? Is he somewhere?
Nash?
No, he's nowhere.
He's chilling.
So
he's watching London Lion games. You know what I mean?
We need him to. You know what I'm saying? Pull up. You know what I'm saying? So come get on staff, man. But so if he gets that experience and then goes back, I think you'll see a completely different experience.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think as a coach, kind of like as a player, you got to find your identity. You know what I mean? And it takes time. And you got to find your identity. More importantly, you got to find your voice. So, and that I feel like it's very tough to do in the league. You know what I mean? It's not like as you were where you're a player, you just get traded, you hop on a team, and you've had this resume, and everybody just respects you like that. Like you're in a different seat. So, I think it's a lot tougher from the outside looking in. But you know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised to see Steve Nash at the head of a bench again soon.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to it, man. But until then, that is all we got for you, Mr. Dekker. We appreciate you joining us again, the second time on the Role Player Podcast, first time since it's been on Swish. We appreciate y'all checking us out. Again, go check us out on YouTube at Swish Cultures and also the Swish Cultures IG page, which is at Swish Cultures. Also, you can check us out on IG and Twitter at The Role Player Media. Sam, we hope to have you on again. I am Jordan Taylor. That doesn't stand for Gentleman Anthony Goods, and we'll catch y'all next time.